Tom Brady has done it again. You just can't doubt the guy. It's that simple. And it wasn't just him. Not even close. The Tampa Bay Bucks destroyed the Kansas City Chiefs. That was something that I did not expect. I thought that if anyone had a chance to beat the Chiefs, I thought the Bucks would be the most likely to do so due to the fact that they have a very complete team on offense and on defense, but never did I see anything like this happening. It was unbelievable. Really from the start. And I know the Chiefs, got the first points, but the Bucks really, they were the more physical team. They just looked more prepared. And I'm surprised that the Chiefs just weren't in this game. I was waiting for them to come back. It never happened. So this is going to go down as one of those blowout Super Bowls. And I figured if that was going to happen, it would be the Chiefs. And I liked the under in this game. If I were to have bet something, it wouldn't have been necessarily who won or lost, but I liked the under. And a big reason for that is I think people were downplaying the fact that this Chiefs offensive line was really beat up. And losing the left tackle Fisher and Mike Remmers was their left tackle. Now, this was a guy who was on the Giants last year. He was their right tackle. This is at this point, a journeyman kind of backup guy. And Pat Mahomes was running for his life all night long. That was definitely the worst I've seen of him. And it wasn't his fault. He just didn't have time to throw, and it was really something else. And, Tampa Bay wins it in Tampa. And I think, Todd Bowles really put together a very nice game plan where he didn't blitz Mahomes like crazy. They got the pressure. Shaq Barrett, Jason Pierre-Paul, who I'm very happy to see win another Super Bowl. Obviously, won it with the Giants at this point, 9 years ago. This time, he's on Brady's side and he wins it again. And Devin White, who was picked right before Daniel Jones, actually, in the 2019 draft. This guy looks like he's on his way to a fantastic career. They were all over Mahomes. And throughout the game, there definitely were, you could say, for sure, questionable calls. But no one is going to look back at this game and say, yep, that was why the Bucks won. Bucks won this whether they didn't receive calls, however you want to say it. This was just pure domination. Nothing else I can say but that. And what's impressive, too, is the fact that a lot of these older players that were all in the AFC really contributed big time for the Bucks. Rob Gronkowski gets the first 2 touchdowns of the game. He had 6 catches, about 67 yards and 2 touchdowns. And this was a guy who had kind of a bit role in the playoffs, right? Cameron Brate was the one that was doing most of the work. And he had some big games in the regular season. So you knew he certainly had it in him. But it's the Gronk that you'd expect to step up in this spot. And then Antonio Brown, who, it's funny with him, he is such a lightning rod and was the top receiver in this league just a few years ago. And now he's seemingly cleaned his act. I think Brady helps a lot. I think when Antonio Brown's playing with Tom Brady, he's going to be on his best behavior. So, would it surprise me if Antonio Brown was in the news again for some shit off the field? No, it wouldn't shock me. But, hey, he did what he had to do. He scores a touchdown. And within that, I'm kind of just jumping all over the place here. Leonard Fournette had a great game. Another guy who was on the Jaguars, comes to the Bucks. He was great this playoffs, had a touchdown, tons of yards. Everything was working for Tampa. And really, Kansas City gets a very big stop, a big goal line stop when it was 7-3. And you're thinking, all right, maybe they're going to turn things around here. I mean, it was still early in the game, and nothing happened. They end up, Tampa gets the ball back, they score and make it 14-3. And I think the really biggest questionable part of this game, and again, I'm not going to go into the potential blown calls, and there were definitely a few that come to mind. There definitely were. There was one where Tom Brady gets intercepted, but they called a penalty on, I forget what his name was. I think it was number 35, the defensive back on Kansas City, who was kind of holding Mike Evans, sort of, not really. And that was a big play. Like, that one, I think, out of all of them, that would have been a change of possession, but it kept the drive going. And there was a field goal where Kansas City was lined up offside. And, again, I believe that was the same drive, and they would eventually score. And yes, it was. And that was to make it 14-3. And what was really critical, Kansas City gets a field to make it 14-6. And there's about 30 seconds or so left in the half. So they hadn't been playing well. By all accounts, Tampa was really the better team. But it was 14-6. Kansas City has all 3 timeouts left. Tampa, on the first play, goes no gain. Kansas City calls a timeout. I guess their hope was, we're going to burn all 3 timeouts or something to that degree and get the ball back with not a whole lot of time left and try to get a field goal. Mind you, Kansas City was getting the ball first in the second half. Then what happens is Tampa gets an 8-yard gain. It's 3rd and 2. Kansas City calls another timeout. And you're just asking for trouble at that point. Now, I guess once you called it after the first down, I guess you were going to do it again. But it was questionable to do it in the first place. If they didn't call a timeout after the no gain, that game is going to half 14-6. Tampa would have just ran out the clock. But because Kansas City did what they did, it enabled Tampa to kind of keep on going. And then at 3rd and 2, I was wondering also, well, they just got an 8-yard gain. Like, I guess you could call another timeout. It didn't make a whole lot of sense. And what do you know? Tampa ends up driving the field, and they get a touchdown by Antonio Brown. And to me, that was so critical. It changed the whole feel. So now it's 21-6 at half. Really bad job by Andy Reid. I don't think it was spoken of enough. And maybe it will be in the coming days. Again, in a blowout like this, you're not going to dissect as much. But look, Andy Reid is obviously one of the great coaches in the game, and him winning that Super Bowl last year changes his whole narrative. It does. It does. But man, has this guy lost in big spots a lot. A lot. Dating back to his days with the Eagles and even with the Chiefs. Great regular season head coach. And, of course, you can't take that Super Bowl away from him. But, wow, that just was not smart. Go down 8 into the half, get the ball first with Patrick Mahomes, and live to fight another day. So to me, when that happens, I didn't think Kansas City was done, but now the whole feel was different. And look, Tampa cruised in the second half. Patrick Mahomes was, you almost were worried for his safety. I mean, this guy was scrambling all over the place. I never thought it would be like this. I had a feeling that he wasn't going to, like against Buffalo, for example, the guy had all day to throw. He just did. And I kind of figured he'd be in some trouble here, but never like this. Like they didn't even get a touchdown. They did not get a single touchdown. I mean, this had to have been the Chiefs' offense's worst game in a very, very long time. It could have honestly been one of Mahomes' worst statistical games since he's been a starter. Since he took over the job. I'd have to check, but what a great bounce back by the Bucs, where Tyreek Hill puts up one of the greatest performances we've ever seen in the regular season matchup, and he was held down. That's what you call, really getting into the film room and scheming. And look, Travis Kelce put up statistics. It's tough to stop him. He is the best tight end in the league. But Tyreek Hill was held in check. Absolutely. So there really isn't a whole lot more really to touch on within the game. It's just more what we learned from it. And Tom Brady is the greatest of all time. And he wins the MVP. And look, like, the Tampa Bay defense could have won the MVP. Even hell, Rob Gronkowski was certainly worthy of winning the MVP. But, Tom Brady, he didn't really even need to do much. They jumped into such a big lead. I'm sure if Brady had to put up more stats, he would have. they were pretty much doing what they wanted to do. That Kansas City defense was not impressive. And, Honey Badger, Tyrann Mathieu kind of looked like a fool getting into a Brady. And, when you're losing like that and it's just not looking good for you guys, there's a time and place to talk smack, but just not a great optic for Mathieu. But really, Brady does it again, and it sounds like he's coming back. And I think it would have been the perfect way to go out for him, but this doesn't surprise me at all when you think about he is just so driven and determined, and knowing that he's still playing at the top of his game, he's not going to stop. I guess when he'll leave is basically when, unfortunately, maybe health or maybe his play just really severely drops, but this guy's still playing at a level where it seems like he might play past 45. He's 43 right now. It's just, I guess we've become so accustomed to it. I think when it's really going to hit is when he's far out of the league. It's when you're going to realize that these records will never be broken. Certainly in my lifetime, they're never going to be broken. 7 Super Bowl championships. That has to be the talk. That has to be. And he beats Patrick Mahomes, who I think Patrick Mahomes, when it's all said and done, he's going to go down as one of the best quarterbacks in this league. He's that good. But then also what I was thinking is, and I think he's a level above, but guys like Aaron Rodgers, Drew Brees, Ben Roethlisberger to a degree, Russell Wilson, who had Super Bowl success earlier in their careers, and then we never saw them reach that point again. Now, some of them, are certainly still in the league. That can change. But it's not an easy thing to do. Could Mahomes just, whether it be because he doesn't have a good defense, it's just simply not an easy task. What if he doesn't go to the Super Bowl year after year? That might just be for Tom Brady. And maybe once Tom Brady leaves this league, it's going to open a lot of things up for the other quarterbacks. That's possible too. And I would be surprised if Mahomes doesn't win another Super Bowl, but it's something to think about. And just more to the point of Brady just dominating at another level. It's not the same as anyone else. And I know people are probably sick of it. No one wants to hear me, praise Tom Brady, but here we are. Here we are. And I know it's easier for me as a Giant fan to do so. Just simple. But the guy is special. And this was a team effort. So I can't say that enough. I have liked this Bucs defense. I have said it on this podcast numerous times. It is impressive and a major increase from last season. So, when you think about the Bucs last year, Jameis Winston, a lot of turnovers, but it was still a good offense that moved the ball. But really, the reason why they lost a lot of games was that defense was pretty porous. And it had a lot of these same folks, but a year with more experience and, in Todd Bowles' system, everything just kind of came together. And it goes to show you, if you get hot at the right time, that might be more important than anything. These guys won 8 in a row. This was a struggling football team that found their stride down the stretch. And you always do. The Bucs are a team you probably don't want to face, considering that they weren't a division winner. They are one of the wild card teams that, you probably don't want to see come playoff time. And look, as long as Tom Brady's at the helm, there's no reason to think that next year they won't be in play. Does that mean they're going to win the division? Who knows? I do think that it's going to be between them and the Saints, and maybe with Jameis Winston as the Saints quarterback, certainly every reason to think the Bucs could win that division. But even if they don't, that's a playoff team. And again, I guess nothing would surprise me, but they are certainly going to be one of those teams talked about as a Super Bowl contender next season. It is a bit of an older roster, so I guess it'll be interesting to see who returns and who doesn't, but certainly they're not going to have any trouble attracting free agents. You're going to, and look, if you're late in your career, you want to win a Super Bowl, go to Tom Brady. We've seen it before and it works. A lot of these guys that were never going to win, even players that had been on Tampa Bay for quite some time, like Mike Evans, has been in the Bucs now for a bit, and Levante David, other players like that, they came into, they stayed around long enough to be in a great situation. So it's really incredible. And yeah, certainly a letdown. I really thought this had the makings of what could have been one of the best Super Bowls in a long time. I really believe that because I didn't think Mahomes was going to just really be suffocated like this, like we've never seen before. That was something else. So Bucks win in dominating fashion. You know, domination is kind of like the word of the night for me. And we'll see what the offseason brings. I can't wait to see what this quarterback carousel looks like. You know, we've already seen Matthew Stafford go to the Rams, Jared Goff go to the Lions. There's talk Carson Wentz is going to be traded pretty soon. It is going to be a very fascinating offseason. Of course, there's a lot of Deshaun Watson talk. So teams are going to be looking a lot different next year. You know, what does New England do? What's their QB situation going to look like? I think the Giants are going to stand pat with Daniel Jones. And next year will be very critical for where the Giants go direction-wise moving forward. You know, we're definitely going to preview the draft when the time is right. It's too soon, obviously. The Super Bowl just ended. But, you know, I think the Giants can certainly use a playmaker. And there's definitely a lot of those available, whether that be Jalen Waddle, Devontae Smith, Kyle Pitts, and other, you know, there's certainly some good edge rushers as well. So we'll get into that. But for now, really, congratulations to the Tampa Bay Bucks, Tom Brady. And as far as what we're going to talk about next, we're going to have to get into the New York Rangers. The Rangers, they have had sort of an up and down beginning, but they're trending up right now. And there's a lot to discuss with them. The Yankees offseason seems to be near completion, and I think they've done some good things. The team doesn't look too different from last year, but they did some things that they had to do. So, you know, we're going to definitely touch on, you know, those sports which have obviously taken a backseat to football, but very excited to talk about all that. March Madness isn't too far away. I definitely would like to talk about sort of what that's going to bring with COVID this year. It's really been difficult with a lot of postponements and cancellations. So the sports is picking up. I can't wait to discuss it, and I will talk to you soon.